Hey everybody, welcome to episode 3 of season 2 of my show. And it's discussing an issue I wanted to talk about for a while. That is separating art from artists. Yeah, normally I try and put out one of these things a month. This one's a little bit late. Yeah, I've got some, right now I'm in the process of writing 2 books at once, and the schedule's kind of mad. Okay, but enough excuses. Let's get to this episode. I'm going to start with kind of a continuation of the last episode. So you might recall, I was talking about Charles Schulz and the Peanuts comic strips. Okay, some of you might recall that I did mention that Charles Schulz did have an affair, which is pretty questionable considering what we know about the man. And yeah, I have to say I was pretty disappointed when I found that out doing that research. But at no point did I say like, well, that's the last time I read a Peanuts comic strip. You could take a flying leap, Snoopy! Now come to think of it, that kind of sounds like one of the Charlie Brown books that I was talking about. Take a flying leap, Snoopy. Okay, but you hear what I'm saying, because there are artists and other sort of entertainers that have committed just horrific atrocities. And they're so terrible that sometimes we can't help but look at their art and go like, ugh. And not only that, we've made them examples of cancel culture. And it's really difficult to talk about separating art from artists without talking about cancel culture, which is probably going to be the bulk of this particular video essay today. Okay, so what is cancel culture? Well, here's a definition I have. It is a movement to remove celebrity status or esteem from a person, place, or thing based on offensive behavior or transgression. Citation needed? Yeah, I just googled that. Okay, now Charles Schulz is of course passed away. But I did mention that when Charles Schulz was having this affair, there's some Peanuts strips with Snoopy writing love letters to someone who he's infatuated with, who is never shown. And a lot of people have interpreted these strips as Charles Schulz essentially kind of leaving love notes to the one that he's infatuated with. Now, this does taint any value that could have been gotten from these strips, which I have to admit, I don't even really remember these strips, and didn't even bother to Google them or do any kind of search, because, honestly, I don't want to be reminded of that. Now, that's just one particular choice that I've made. That could be viewed as an example of low-rate cancel culture, if you really want to get into it. Oh, we're going to get into it, alright. And so if I wanted to say like, oh, I can't stand Charles Schulz anymore, and then I just actively cancel, I suppose I would just burn any works of Charles Schulz that are in my house, any Peanuts books I happen to have, which honestly I couldn't even find the one I was looking for, and the last time I did. And then just not buy any Peanuts books, which honestly, I mean, I think Fantagraphics Books has them, so... You know, and so in other words, not actively donate to anything Peanuts related, so I guess I wouldn't be watching those Apple TV specials. And yeah, and so I guess what that would do is essentially probably not fund Charles Schulz's late family, because I actually believe they're the ones that kind of got the keys to the kingdom after Charles Schulz passed away. And if I did that, that's probably not going to affect them much. But if everyone did that, that's kind of the basis of cancel culture, because that would really affect the artists, wouldn't it? That's the nature of cancel culture. So yeah, like I said before, I'm not really looking to look at those strips for Snoopy being infatuated with someone. Come on, I mean, I've got better things to do with my time. But when we find that an artist has done just terrible things, it really makes it hard to look at some of their works without going, ugh. Anyway, now Charles Schulz is, of course, he's passed away, but if cancel culture affects somebody while they're alive, then they're going to have a really hard time finding work, I believe it. And because their reputation just follows them. It's just like a former prison inmate trying to apply for a job. Okay, one recent example here is Roseanne Barr. If you're not familiar with this thing, she posted a tweet, I don't remember the year, but it just said, Muslim Brotherhood and Planet of the Apes had a baby, equals VJ. VJ is Valerie Jarrett, who senior aide to President Obama, and and essentially comparing this woman to a monkey. It came across as racist, and I don't really see how else it could have come across, but hey. I say this because I'm not really certain that Roseanne Barr meant to be racist. I mean, because surely she would know if she left comments like that they would be interpreted as racist, right? I mean, you just don't go saying something racist unless you want to get canceled, right? Isn't that the world we live in? I hope so. Anyway, Roseanne actually thought that Valerie Jarrett was white, and her defense of it is not really flattering. Yeah, as I recall, she said she was ambient tweeting, and that's now a thing now. Kind of like, I don't know, wardrobe malfunction or something like that. Okay, if you're not old enough to remember the 80s, Roseanne was a huge celebrity back in the late part of that decade. She was really riding high with her self-titled show, Roseanne. And she actually had some black marks on her career even before this. There was a time she sung the national anthem, and, you know, that didn't kill her career, but it certainly didn't help it in any way back then. But for most celebrities, if you do a lot of good television, good movies, good content, so to speak, people tend to forgive you for a bad movie or a character flaw. But in the case of Roseanne, you know, I mean, after the whole national anthem incident, her show went on for a few seasons after that. And then there was a lot of controversy, I think, dealing with her divorce from Tom Arnold. I didn't really bother researching that because I didn't really want to go down that rabbit hole, honestly. I just remember that was just always kind of in the front of tabloids. Okay, I definitely think Roseanne is a great example of cancel culture because she even has, like, a comedy special known as Cancel This. Yeah. Now, I've seen some clips from this, and it sounds like she would have hoped that it would have worked out. Like, for example, she didn't like having to hear from CNN that her show, that she was fired. Apparently, ABC did not call her first, and which to me, I kind of go in like, it's weird that we live in an age where the news actually gives us the information rather than getting it ourselves as an individual. Yeah. Anyway, I think she even wanted to make it kind of a teachable moment. She wanted to kind of go, you know, essentially kind of, I don't know, maybe live and basically apologize to this person, make it a teachable moment. But that never happened. She was never given the chance. But do I feel sorry for Roseanne? A little. From what I can tell, most of Cancel This goes into some weird kind of almost conspiracy theory stuff. It gets kind of, yeah. The truth is I found Roseanne's works to be a lot of focus on the negative side of life, even when she was in her prime back in the 80s. A lot of it was about how hard it is to be a mother and stuff like that, and in her defense, I wasn't the audience that she was aiming for. So, and I believe that she did reach out to a lot of the people that she wanted to reach and did good in their lives. So, that shouldn't be dismissed. And hey, the show is still going on without Roseanne. And even though I enjoyed the 80s version, kind of, I don't watch it because I'm just not really interested. And, you know, and it has nothing to do with Roseanne not being on it. But I think it shows that people are willing to forget and forget when celebrities make dumb decisions or do bad movies or bad TV shows. But there are limits to the amount that they will forgive them. Okay, and even before Roseanne was canceled, she was a staunch Trump supporter. And that brings its own baggage with it, because there are many that will shun Trump supporters, and there will many that will accept them with open arms. Yeah, I'm not gonna touch on the whole Trump thing this time. That's a whole can of worms that we could do at least 6 shows on. Anyway, but essentially, there's been a lot of times, like, before it gets canceled, that there's some signs that this person just isn't really good. Okay, one surprise for me, though, was Ellen DeGeneres. Now, this one kind of surprised me, but I had to say not really. I mentioned in a video before that people who are in power, they tend to abuse it. And considering the show was kind of based around Ellen, I'm guessing she probably had a lot of power over people. And I imagine that really nothing happened on that show that wasn't Ellen improved, or at some point. Now, it's possible she had, I'm sure she had a studio or network that sort of dictated, hey, what things have to be on the show. Or, considering she's the one in front of the camera, she probably has a degree of veto power that, yeah, that a lot of us probably don't have. Anyway, there's a lot of controversy because apparently working for Ellen was just terrible. Interns and people working the show, and just constant reports kept coming out. And I imagine that I can actually just see Ellen being one of those persons that if like her coffee wasn't given her on time, she would probably make a big thing out of it, throw a diva tantrum, and make it very hard for those around her. I've worked with people like this, and it is grating. Especially when you see someone who is kind of becoming an icon and essentially having a childish reaction to not getting their own way. And then, since we live in an age where a lot of people are being held accountable, they'll often try and justify it with, well, I'm under a lot of pressure and stuff like that. Or, if you knew the pressure I was under, you can see how much, and essentially they try and make them, they apologize, but they really don't apologize. It's really ugly. So yeah, and one of the best way for a celebrity to get canceled is not just one tweet, but oftentimes lots of reports from a lot of people saying essentially the same thing. And when there were so many reports of Ellen just being just impossible to work with, this really eventually led to the collapse of her show. And her brand at the time was huge. She was the new Oprah Winfrey. Something tells me Oprah Winfrey probably has some similar things going on there, and I really just don't want to do any more research on this. So, if Oprah Winfrey should have been canceled or was canceled, you know what? You could... I tell you one person that I thought was really strange in this cancel culture thing. That's J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series, which is still beloved by a lot of fans. And it's so funny because when the Harry Potter books were rising in popularity, conservatives wanted to cancel her. They basically just said like, oh, these books are just support witchcraft. And then after all the books were published, Rowling said stuff like, oh yeah, Dumbledore's gay, and then conservatives really wanted to cancel her. And then she has these postings about the transgender community, and oh, JK, oh my gosh, could you please JK about this? Seriously, it feels like someone who just dropped the ball. I mean, if you read Harry Potter, it's about a group of people, wizards and witches, who, from what I can tell, I actually believe that they are not something secret like Men in Black, but I get the feeling like in Harry Potter world, the wizards and witches, they are actually known by the community, but people choose to just kind of ignore them and marginalize them. And I can't speak for trans people, but I think there's an audience who can really relate to this, that would actually like to hear that that the people are in a similar plight. It would have been awesome to say, for J.K. Rowling to say, hey, I'm with you, I can relate. But I'm told the author actually doubled down on her defense against trans people, and that just feels bad for me. And you know what, in doing some research about the whole J.K. Rowling thing, I found out that it started with a single tweet, and then it just really avalanched from there, and I don't really want to get into the whole aspect of that. So let's talk Mel Gibson. Oh yeah, man, that guy was big when he was big. Huge A-lister, actor, director, and when he did The Passion of the Christ, that was a really big film. Not just for church audiences, but secular audiences as well. A lot of people really loved it. But a lot of people called out that the film was anti-Jew, and of course, I remember watching the interviews afterwards where Mel Gibson was saying, like, no, I'm not anti-Jewish. And then he gets caught and goes in a drunken rant. And it's funny, out of all the canceled people I've talked about so far, Mel Gibson actually can still find some pretty steady work. Mostly in those direct-to-video DVD films. I've highlighted these poor flicks on my TikTok channel a lot, with the horrors of the Walmart DVD section. His name shows up on a lot of these films. And if you remember what his career was like in the 80s and 90s, I mean, it's a backward step, to say the least. However, one could argue that any actor who is as old as Mel Gibson generally has gone down to play lesser roles like this. Hollywood is not kind to older actors and actresses, especially actresses. I mean, they usually don't get the good roles, they usually get reduced to the side characters, and yeah. Now this video essay could just become a list of canceled celebrities. I mean, I did a Google search and I found names like, I don't know, Justin Timberlake, Matt Damon, Dave Chappelle. I have to admit, like, I'm not really listening to much celebrity news, and I didn't even really know about some of these cases here, and yeah, I was actually kind of surprised to hear about some of these people that, and now, were I ever to meet any of these people, I would probably go like, oh shoot, they're canceled, aren't they? Or they did something. It's like, not that I'm ever going to meet these people.